Hi, greetings, it's me, Dr. Paul Gerhardt, and this is video number 7 in our marketing series of videos. And this is going to be a relatively short video. I think a lot of people already know about business-to-business marketing, but just in case you don't, or if you want a refresher, this video is on exactly that, business-to-business marketing. And so you're going to learn in this video about ways in which business-to-business firms segment their markets. We're going to talk about the steps in the B2b or business-to-business buying process. We're going to identify roles about the buying center and describe different types of organizational cultures that may affect buying situations. Big companies like General Electric are always trying to find ways to build their brand and their company. And so right now they're working on new technology, and it's probably been around for a few years by the time you see this video, in 3D printing. Now, this is something that you have to think about, because General Electric, you could buy your products, General Electric products, from companies that sell General Electric products, or if you were going to be a retailer of General Electric products, you could buy and have them make your printer for you. B2B is easy. Say you are making lemonade and you buy lemons from a grocery store and then you sell it to the public. Well, you become a business to consumer, or B2C, and if you are buying lemons as a lemonade salesperson, and you're buying lemons directly from the farmer, you are buying it from a B2B. Simple as that. So the B2b model is kind of simple, and they include a variety of different types of organizations: resellers, institutions, government, and then manufacturers and service providers. And so let's talk about manufacturers and service providers to start with. They buy raw materials and components for making parts, and then they manufacture their own goods. But they got to get those raw materials from someplace. So there's an example of manufacturers and service providers involved in B2B. Resellers. Resellers buy from a manufacturer, and then they simply resell it to a retailer. So resellers generally don't sell it to the public. They're kind of an intermediary. So you probably buy almost everything from some kind of resellers. You go to the grocery store, that grocery store buys from a reseller who gets their product from the manufacturer. Then in turn that reseller sells it to us. So institutions, that's kind of simple. Schools, museums, religious organizations, those all fit into the classification of institutions, at least for the sake of this. You know, maybe you've gone to college. Think about the products or services that you actually used in college. Well, those products or services, since colleges don't generally produce their own materials like food, they probably had to pick those things up from a reseller, for instance, who was selling probably from a manufacturer. So government is kind of easy. You know, there are state and local governments they make significant purchases. As a matter of fact, I read somewhere that the federal government is the #1 purchaser of products, goods, and services. So, and then there are lots of departments of the government involved. You know, military and different social services. So. And there are firms that just specialize in selling to the government. And of course, you've got to go through the approval process in order to get a contract selling your product or service through the government. So some things that you may think about is, what about run race shows? Do they create value? For wholesale buyers, they give fashion trends, give a preview, and for designers, they get to create a buzz about their products with the end users. So We're always seeing marketing take place all around us. Here's the B2 buying process. Listen closely. Starts with need recognition. You know, I need a product or service to fill some kind of need in my life. 2, product specification. The product has to be developed. 3, the RFP process. I'm going to talk about that here shortly. Proposal analysis, and then selection of a supplier, and then the order specification. You know, now that they know what the product needs to look like, then you need to know how many. And then vendor performance and assessment using metrics. So if you are a manufacturer and you intend on doing B2B type business, you really need to know that you're probably being rated. And so you really have to understand the needs of your customer, your business customer in this case, and then make sure that you are exceeding those expectations. You know, don't give them a reason to look anywhere else. So let's talk about stage 1, or need recognition. These are things that happen internally or externally, and the sources for recognizing new needs and for suppliers, salespeople, competitors. Sometimes, I know when I was in the grocery business, I can remember a customer asking me for capers. I didn't even know what a caper was. But then I had to look around at all the companies that supplied us with different types of groceries to put on our shelves, and I found a company that sold capers. Well, because a customer asked for capers, it made me look for capers, and then I was able to order capers and have them on our shelves, and it ended up being a pretty good selling item. So customers taught me, you know, helped me recognize a need, and I was able to fill that as a grocery manager. So just a quick example. So product specification is stage 2. And these are used by suppliers to develop proposals, and they can be done collaboratively with suppliers, and usually it's kind of a back and forth process. You know, if I owned a chain of grocery stores and consumers wanted a large bottle of capers, I'd have to figure out what large looked like, and so they might send me a 3-ounce bottle of capers, and that might not be enough, and so then I'd have to go back and say, no, I need like 4 times this amount, and so they'd send me a 12-ounce bottle of capers, and I'm just making this up. But you know, it's kind of a back and forth to figure out exactly what will work specifically for the business, and of course it's the customer's needs that will guarantee whether or not further business is done. You don't want to carry products on your shelf that aren't meeting customer expectations. And then there's stage 3, the RFP process, and that's a request for proposals. And RFPs enable the buyer to solicit pricing and other information from a variety of suppliers that allow suppliers to learn about the buyer and its specific needs. So really getting the details down and allowing people to put a bid for the process. Step number 4, proposal analysis, vendor negotiation, and selection. So once people see that you need a specific product or service, then they'll start giving criteria that will help you as a business manufacturer decide whether or not you're going to choose to go with them or not. And you could choose a different variety of reasons. Maybe you like the fact that they are a minority-owned business, for instance, or maybe you like the fact that they're a local manufacturer and they get the product closer to you, or maybe it's about price. So there are a lot of different things that go into choosing the right company to do business with. Then there's step number 5, order specification. And that's all about just placing the order. We've probably all placed orders before, but this is from one business to another, making sure that the exact details of the purchase, you know, how many, what's the quantity needed, and the time that's going to be, and then how are you going to pay for it is the other thing in the order specification that needs to be understood. So once the product gets out to the business, then it's being weighted using different metrics. And so there can be different key issues that you are being weighted on. It could be the quality of your customer service, or whether or not, if you had a problem, how easily and quickly it was fixed, and then the delivery, what did that look like, and the quality of the product. So metrics allow you to weight things in a way where one thing might be more important than another thing. Maybe customer service is the most important thing, or maybe the quality of it is the most important. But metrics allow you to do the math in order to be able to weigh out how well eventually did. So that's step number 6. So buying center is another thing. When you are doing business with another organization, there's always going to be people who affect the buying process. Influencers, deciders, buyers, users, gatekeepers, and initiators are essentially the main people who are involved. Sometimes I can remember when I was doing leadership training, and I can remember wanting to go and talk to the president of the organization, and there was a gatekeeper there. It's like, what do you want to talk to him about? Well, you need to tell me about it. And then so I ended up talking to the gatekeeper in this case, who was the right hand of the president, and she actually was able to influence the president to choose me as a leadership trainer for their organization. So you got to remember, you got to be nice to everybody. You got to be authentic and don't manipulate people. But being kind to people really does pay off, and having a good quality product that's priced right matters too. So influencers, deciders, buyers, users, gatekeepers, and initiators are all people involved in the buying process. So organizational culture also affects purchasing of a product. And sometimes there are really mainly just 4 different types of general types of organizational cultures in the buying process. And they could be a democratic, where lots of people are involved in the decision making, or it's autocratic, where only one person makes that decision, or it's a consensus where people vote to decide on it, or it's consultative. They involve other people in the process of understanding what they need and what they don't need, and then in the decision making process. So there's all different types of mixes of situations that could take place as you're trying to get your product or service out there. So then we use terms in selling with buying situations like a new buy, a straight buy, modified rebuy. And these are pretty straightforward terms. A new buy is when you're purchasing something for the very first time. And usually that initial time really is kind of complex. There's a lot involved in that when you're doing business-to-business transactions, because ideally you want to make sure that the company that you're working with is ideally vetted, and you want to make sure the product or service is great if it's the first time that they're ever using a similar product or service, or maybe they have expectations like we talked about. So the buying process will probably use all 6 steps of the buying process in that particular case. Then there's a modified rebuy, and that's purchasing a similar product but changing the specifications. And so that happens from time to time. So if I was buying capers, and maybe I was buying a case of 3-ounce capers every week, but maybe the caper fad slowed down. So maybe I needed to cut down to a case of capers every month, so that's a modified rebuy. Or maybe for just one time I needed the 6-ounce capers because customers really wanted it. Well, that would be considered a modified rebuy. And then a straight rebuy, where you're buying additional units or products that have been previously purchased before. So essentially no changes at all. Alright, so I wanted to keep this as a simple video. Again, this is video 7 in my marketing series. I hope that you've taken something away from this video. Maybe it's just a pleasant review of the business information that you already knew. But anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed the video, and I appreciate your time, and I hope that you have a great day, because only you get to choose how you feel about it. I'm Dr.